and vote on potential U.S. military action in Iraq and maybe in Syria. He chairs the Senate Foreign Relations Subcommittee that is responsible for policy in that part of the world. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine, thank you so much for being with us, sir.
You bet, Rachel. Glad to be with you.
So it was almost a year ago to the day when President Obama said he wanted to mount U.S. airstrikes in Syria because of chemical weapons. He said he wanted to do that, but that Congress should authorize it. Congress never acted on that one way or the other. Do you think Congress will act now on this new proposal for airstrikes in Syria?
Well, Rachel, first, I hope desperately that the president brings this to Congress. I know the team is weighing whether to bring it to Congress or not. And actually, let me walk through what happened last year, because I think what happened last year shows that if you do it the way the constitutional framers intended, good things happen. The president had to come to Congress. He had to define the mission. We need to use airstrikes in Syria to deter the use of chemical weapons. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I sit on it, we voted 10-8 to use military force for that limited purpose. As soon as we did, Russia and Syria changed their calculation, came to the table and said, hold on a second, don't start military action. We will give up our entire chemical weapons stockpile. So the president, by announcing the goal, coming to Congress, the Relations Committee acting on the president's request, even when it was unclear that the rest of Congress would go along, led to the achievement of what the president's objective was, which was the complete destruction of the chemical weapons stockpile in Syria, which was very important. My argument is the president did it right last year. And by doing it right, he got the objective that he defined to Congress, which was taking the chemical weapons stockpile out of the equation. And so he needs to come to Congress again with respect to the threat that ISIL poses, and he needs to explain it and crisply define what a military mission would be, and then, as you indicate, let Congress debate it and vote it up or down. That's what the framers of the Constitution intended. It's the right thing to do legally. It's the right thing to do morally, because if you're going to put servicemen and women in harm's way, you ought to try to get a political consensus first that the mission is worth it. And it's the most likely way for things to work out well after that kind of considered debate.
Even if we put aside the question of whether or not airstrikes should be expanded into Syria, it's been about 2.5 weeks since the president notified Congress that he would start using airstrikes against ISIS in Iraq. So under the War Powers Resolution, after 60 days, legally, would that action need to stop if Congress doesn't vote to authorize that action inside Iraq? Or is the president okay with continuing to do that on his own, even if Congress doesn't say anything about it?
Rachel, I don't think the president can. I think there's only one circumstance where the president can really act unilaterally before Congress, and that's when American lives are imminently threatened, whether it be an embassy or American troops. When American lives are imminently threatened, the president, as commander-in-chief, has the ability to act first and then hopefully get congressional approval later. But when there's no imminent threat to American life, the framers of the Constitution were very, very clear. James Madison, a Virginian, okay, so I'm biased about him, but they were very clear that we put the decisions of declaration of war in the hands of Congress, the people's elected representatives. And what that forces is the president to be disciplined, come explain a mission, to have that debate which educates the American public, and then to make a decision knowing that once it's made, if there's a decision made to go forward, you've got a political consensus, and you're not asking servicemen and women to risk their lives with the political class not having done the work to describe whether the mission is worth it or not. And so I think the president, we are in a position where those 60 days really start to run right when we get back. For the next 2 weeks while Congress, and we're not just vacating, we're also doing all kinds of work all around our states, but the president should take the next 2 weeks to define what this military mission is, because it's clear by word and action that the president, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, thinks we need to engage militarily to stop the momentum of ISIL. But they ought to describe what the military mission is and what we would hope to achieve so we can educate the American public and let the people's representatives cast a vote of approval or disapproval as the framers intended.
Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, you've been outspoken on this for a long time now. I appreciate you walking us through your thoughts on this. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.